Well, I'll do the tiniest of intros.
Sure.
As we get started, I just came across Pele's work straight up on Instagram. I fell in love. I think you're gonna show one of the images that like really caught my eye, but it's like the bizarre cover.
Okay.
Man, those colors were amazing. And then it just instantly went to your site. First, I went to the rest of your Instagram, then I went to your site, and I just thought this was amazing. And I wanted your voice in this class.
Mhm.
Um, so yeah, again, just like our previous visiting artist, I just randomly emailed you, and it's just so amazing that you responded first of all to like this random email, and
Mhm.
then now here you are talking about your work to the class. So yeah, I'm super appreciative, and I'll turn it over to you.
Sweet. Well, first of all, thank you for the intro. That was awesome. My name is Pele Joez, and I'm a fashion and commercial photographer based in Chicago. So the items that I'm probably going to go through, probably I'm actually going to go through today are just sort of how I got started, mediums that I shoot and why, examples. I'll give a few examples of just some film work that I really appreciate. Just general advice that I wish I kind of heard when I first started, what I'm working on next and why. And I'll open it up to questions and, we can go kind of go from there. So I started off actually in completely different field. I was a math and biology major at the University of Michigan, Ann Arbor. And, originally I wanted to be a doctor. I just absolutely knew it. I worked in the lab for a few years after college, and during that time, that's when I really started picking up the pace with photography. And by that, I mean, like picking up a camera and shooting train tracks and graffiti and walls and stuff like that. Later on, my one of my friends in college ended up he was trying to be a professional model, an actor, and he asked me, since I had a camera, to take some shots of him, and he ended up getting signed to LA Models. So I was like, huh, maybe there's something to it. Now, mind you, these images were very, very basic, and that's kind of all you really need. So I don't want to hype them up too much, but they were good for me at the time. And so soon after that, I reached out to a slew of photographers in the area because I wanted to learn as much as I could. I didn't have any lights at the time. I had a Nikon D7, I want to say. It was one of their first couple models, digital. And I think how did I get that camera? I ended up doing the landscaping for my parents, and that was like the trade-off. In hindsight, I think they made it. I think they got over better than I did. I think I paid maybe like $600 for the camera, and I'm pretty sure landscaping is not $600. Um, but yeah, so I ended up reaching out to a bunch of photographers. Lots of no's, lots of rejection. A lot of people said, like they weren't comfortable, they were too busy. But eventually there was a photographer named Dan Lippett, very talented guy. He ended up saying yes to my inquiry, and he actually invited me over to his spot, and we just kind of like chit chatted. He kind of wanted to vet me and see that I wasn't like kind of like a skis. And basically, he asked me a few questions, and one of them was, like why are you doing this? And he's like, he wanted me to have the right reasons. And like I was like, I'm obsessed. I love it. I shot one of my friends, and um he's basically like, you're not trying to get girls to do this. And I was like, oh, okay, that's interesting. And I think that brings up another topic of making people feel comfortable on set and being, socially responsible, which we can touch on a little later. But yeah, so I ended up doing like a little internship with him. I was a terrible assistant. I definitely talked a little too much on set, but eventually I learned my way. He was very patient with me. And he's actually the photographer for the Pistons right now. So I ended up doing that for about maybe like 6 months, 6 to 8 months. There was a local magazine in town called Style Line Magazine. Unfortunately, it doesn't exist anymore. Detroit fashion, it's Detroit fashion. It's a stepping stone. Um, well, actually, let me let me take that back. It was a great experience, and but it's the Midwest is, I think, getting better about fashion, but the big hubs are, Europe, New York, and LA. For the most part, Miami has its scene also. Um, so I ended up reaching out later to a few modeling agencies because that was my goal at the time exclusively, was to work with models, to be a fashion photographer. And so I was using um, the Chicago market to as like a stepping stone. So for me, the way I've kind of gone about my career, it's to use one experience and leveraging that to get to the next experience. So my first step that I had planned, I'm a big planner, and my first step was basically, hey, like I've, um, you know, Detroit has its scene, but I've kind of gotten the gist of it. And then Chicago has its modeling agencies, and I was going to use that to then eventually get to New York, but because of lifestyle, I'm moving to LA. So um, yeah, so then I ended up moving out to Chicago, and I started off with doing modeling testing portfolios. I think I was getting about 125 bucks per shoot. Um, and yeah, you start you off in a different way. It's a lot of work up front. But to be honest, when special things happen when your back's against the wall, I do think that that kind of brings me to my next topic is free. I think that there is a I think it's like kind of like a two-part conversation. It's free, and then there's also the topic of practice. So for me, free got me into the spaces that I'm into right now. It seems I don't think I think there's different ways to go about it, but I definitely think, if you don't have a book at all, you can't ask someone to pay you with nothing to show. Especially at my level right now, clients are very literal, meaning that they need to see exactly what they're going to get before they even get it, even though, it's a new relationship. That can be frustrating, but sure.
Sorry. When you say if you don't have a book at all, you just mean like a portfolio book?
Yes.
Got it.
So it all depends on like what you're going after. So say hypothetically, I was trying to be a fashion photographer, and I had no images of models in clothes, and that, yes, I'm calling myself a fashion photographer, but you still have to have something to show so that someone can trust you. It's a relationship. So I um, had my book of basically, friends at the time. And I brought that to Chicago, and they were like, "Hey, we see that you have some talent, but we're willing to like nurture that." And even right now, if fashion's your goal, you can approach any agency with friends in clothes, and I would start with, say, a smaller agency in your area. Like, don't go for like the large big names like a Ford or a IMG or a DNA or something like that. You start with like a local talent. It could be like small like actors, whatever. It doesn't matter. Whatever you have access to. So I started off with Factor models, and then BMG. Those were like the two smaller ones in Chicago, but since then Factor has gotten larger. It's now called Select. There's Ford, and there's a few others in town now. But I ended up reaching out to them. They nurtured me a little bit, a lot, and they let me, you know, there's something called testing. So testing is basically like, I think some people call it like TFP. It's basically like I'm shooting this model for free, and with the hopes that we both get great images so that we can showcase this to a potential client or to an agency or what have you. So when I say free, it's free with a purpose. It's not free just to shoot. It's you're taking the same level of um, care and interest and planning as you would if it were an actual job. So you're still meticulous what you're planning. You're still planning out your lighting. You're still, taking pride in what you're putting on, your subject, and um, and then you shoot it, and then you edit your images with whatever skills you have at the time, and then you showcase those. And it's a lot of rinse and repeating. Honestly, to this day, I still am using this technique. So, for instance, I there's a ad agency called Leo Burnett. I reached out to one of their producers because I wanted to shoot for Coors. Coors is a beer company. So I reached out to them. They said generally that they liked my book, but that and you want to see specifically, that I'll shoot it and then we can have like a further conversation. So what I did was before New Year's, it was maybe like 2 weeks before Christmas, I ended up setting up two different shoots. One was a product shoot. The second one was a lifestyle shoot. And now at this point in my career, I have a bit more access. So I reached out to prop stylists and, there's like 5 or 6 models, and, I went through agencies and stuff like that. And we set up basically like a fake ad campaign. I put all that together, and that has bought me a meeting with their entire staff. So the 3rd of March, I'll end up going to Leo Burnett, and I will be showcasing my work to their creative directors and the rest of their producers to to potentially get more jobs. Now, the upside of that, thank you, appreciate it. And the upside of that is um it shows, like people love hardworking people, like good people, and they like hardworking people. And like when's the last time you saw someone working extremely hard and then didn't want to give them a chance? There's something about seeing, character like that, that you want to help people out. And so don't sleep on that, because people do want to help other people out, but they want to see the effort behind it too. And the skill will come. So trying to think. Okay, so back to the origin story. So after reaching out to Select and Ford and Factor, and getting paid $125 per test, eventually my rate started to increase, and then it increased to the point where I could start buying lights, and that's when things started happening a little bit more quickly because I was able to do more. I'm going to come back to practice again. So another example where I got a job from there's a whiskey company called Bullet, and I reached out to them during the pandemic. So during the pandemic, there was a lot of slow period for a lot of artists, and I took Tally, go lay down. Sorry, my dog. I took my time with some lights that I had just purchased and sat down and just took whiskey bottles and shot them in the most interesting ways as possible, and reached out to the global brand manager and just sent them a deck. And I ended up getting hired after COVID to shoot again. So it's like my literally my entire career has been off of free work. So it's like you shoot something, you put it in your book, you show this to as many people as you can. And I would say this brings me to my next point, which is rejection. Um, need a sip of water for that one. Rejection is inevitable. It 100% is going to happen at every stage of your career. It happens to me on a daily basis. Your There's a lot of competition, and that's okay. But the good news is that regardless of how much competition there is, you have your own voice, and no one is you. Like literally, no one is you. So that means that you offer a unique perspective, and no one's going to ever have that perspective. Um, so um, I have to look back at my notes really quick. So yeah, so um, after my rate started increasing, I wanted to get more into um, commercial work. Commercial work is anything from consumer packaged goods, meaning like like your Oreos product, people holding product, like a yogurt commercial where someone's smiling eating a yogurt, just any ad you see where people are using a product. That's what I wanted to get into because the rates are way different. When you get into commercial work, it can really be life changing financially, which is great. But I want to stress that when you first start making like a little bit more money than you're used to, it can be pretty jarring and exciting. But you can't forget what got you there in the first place, which is the practice. So because at the end of the day, there is some competition element to it, and you always need to be getting better. But while you're getting better, it needs to be in things that you're enjoying because if you're not enjoying the process, it's going to feel like you're beating your head against the wall. So um, I would say it's really important to, you have your art for yourself and you have your work, but both require their own sets of practice. For me, I had I had a friend that was working at there was a sales rep at a local agency in town, and they knew of where I was at in my career at the time, and they gave me a chance to meet with their producer and creative director. We hit it off. So the next point I want to stress is, showcasing your personality. So at the end of the day, when you are working at any level, and this just goes for life in general, you want to feel safe and comfortable and accepted within any circle that you're in. Um, and that goes for work as well. So if you're on set for 8 or 10 hours, you have to like who you're around, and for the most part. And that doesn't mean necessarily be like a social chameleon in any environment that you're in. That just means be yourself. But some you want to get along with who you're hanging out with. So interviewing and meeting producers and creative directors, trying to get along with them as best as you can, that's really important. But at the same time, try to be yourself. I think that anytime I've interviewed well, it's because I've been myself pretty authentically. And anytime I've stammered and really struggled, it's been because I was trying to put on a face. Obviously, answer questions, appropriately and prepare for your interviews, but ultimately, like, you have to be you because, again, I'm going to stress it again, like, no one is you. And the reason why I stress being authentic is because the quicker you can be authentic in real life and in interviews, the more it's going to come out in your work, especially your creative and personal work. I actually had a Zoom call with a really really talented and extraordinary photographer, and she, you know, she's in Vogue, she's in Vogue Italia, she's shot literally every person under the sun. She's really having her moment right now. Her name is Elizaveta, and and we she actually had made a post online about like portfolio interview, or portfolio like assessments, and just having a conversation with her if you donated um to like a Ukrainian like pet shelter. And so I hopped on it because she's extraordinary. And I made my donation. I sent her a DM, and we had a 45-minute to an hour long Zoom call. And in the Zoom call, I was censoring myself. Like, I wanted to ask the perfect questions. I was like, this is a chance of a lifetime. I don't want to screw this up. And she was like, you're censoring yourself. And she's like, if you're censoring yourself with me, you're censoring yourself with your art. And I was like, oh wow, holy shit. So let me get my stuff together. So, the conversation evolved, and I'm going to explain more on that within a different subject, within a different topic of the conversation here. But it just goes back: be yourself, be authentic, try not to censor yourself too much, but be professional. So eventually I started to get more and more commercial work, and um, now it's things are consistent. And but I've found a um, kind of a formula that works for me. It's something like shoot something for myself. And so basically I have a strong separation between artwork, um, like testing artwork, and then also work portfolio building. So you have to kind of manage your skills and your time management really well. Um, that takes some zhuzhing. I drop the ball all the time. Sometimes I devote more time towards um my artwork. Sometimes and then neglect like work, meaning like the extra stuff. Um, but you have to kind of, at least you don't have to do anything, but I recommend having a strong separation between your art that you create for yourself and the work that you do. So you have to put food on the table, and you have to make that a priority. But when you have available time, you also need to be creating for yourself. For me, I had a very unique, and I'm sure actually it's not unique at all. I think a lot of artists have this experience where when you start making better money, you start pouring a lot of energy into that because it's something you haven't experienced before. So art and stability don't always go hand in hand. It's, progress is not linear. It's kind of one of these. So um, I sorry, I lost my train of thought. Um, so um, I would recommend yeah, you have to have a separation between the two. And you have to kind of like time manage between having art and work. So what has worked for me in the past and now is I just kind of carve out at the beginning of every month, um, hey, I'm going to shoot one editorial or one project by X date. And then I know based on my experience that it takes 2 to 3 weeks to really put something together of value. So then I just start putting those dates on the calendar. And then everything else is either prospecting or um, meaning I'm reaching out to potential clients with my book. And then I have like an Excel sheet with hey, I reach out to LL Bean or Coca-Cola or Nabisco or whatever on this date, and then I have like a follow-up date and nudges and stuff like that. So it's a lot of work, but it pays off. And after you get your commercial work flowing, you can use those funds towards your personal projects. And those you should really just go all in on. Don't hold back, just literally do whatever you want to do. Sometimes it can be challenging to um, sort of flip that switch on and off. I found that, when you shoot a lot of commercial work, it can kind of be challenging to kind of like, now I need to be artistic and now I need to be, experimenting. Um, but, do your best and be patient with yourself. Um, let's see. Okay. So enough of the hardcore advice. I'm sorry if I butchered. This is all advice that I totally wish somebody told me. I love film. Absolutely love it. Everything about it. Film is fun to process. Film is fun to shoot with. I typically use this one. This is a Mamiya RZ67 Pro 2. I absolutely love it. It doesn't have a name, but I feel like it should. Um, yeah, it's a lot of fun. It's got a hand crank, and I highly recommend any film camera. It doesn't have to be that one. It can be a point and shoot. It can be literally anything. But the reason why I got into film was because of two factors. The first one, it was only one. The first one was, or the only one is, um, I just love the way it looks. Um, film has a way of just feeling like real life to me. Skin is like very buttery. I love grain. There's just something about it. It's beautiful. Um, I also found out some pros that I didn't expect to. So film is also very expensive. Or it can be, depending on your financial situation. So every shot, so like my Mamiya, I have a few film cameras, but that's like my favorite. Don't tell all the other bodies. Um, but don't want to make anyone jealous. So my Mamiya only takes 10 shots, 10 frames. It's 6x7 crop. So I have 10 shots, and each roll of film is, like $15, 12 to $15 for a Kodak Pro. Yeah, I think Kodak 400 is like 12 to $15, depending where you go. So, that means you're paying a couple bucks for every single shot. For context, I've moved out of using a darkroom on my own just because of volume. But there's a place called the Picture House photo. It's called the Small Dark Room plus sign Picture House. It's a studio located in New York. They're fantastic. This is not a plug, but it is. It's an awesome spot. Um, the reason why I went to them is basically um, in photography, especially when you're trying to get better. It's hard to tell what's your gear, what's your lighting, like why does my stuff not look as good as some professionals that are really just dogs at it. And I was basically trying to figure out what was me and what was my gear. So some of my favorite photographers use that camera, so I saved up and bought that camera. So that was like control number one. And then the second one was um I went to like a smaller place to develop my first set of film, and it was looking kind of rough. And so I went to like a better place, and in the second roll started looking better, and some of it was user error. So I was like, okay, cool. So if everyone's going here, because they produce like Vogue covers and everything, So I was like, okay, like if I'm botching it here, then I know that I'm doing something wrong. So I had to learn a little bit more how to use my gear. But the reason why I love film is because it also slows me down. When you only have 10 shots to work with, you really have to make everyone count. Um, I it also kind of makes you, because you're slowing down so much, you also have a unique relationship with your subject or whatever you're photographing. It slows you down to the point where you're really analyzing and taking everything in. You really have to focus on your composition. You have to make sure all your lighting scenarios are as perfect as you can make them at that time with the skills that you have at the time. And yeah, I love it. But I'd love to go through a few images that I um think show like why I love film. Let's see. Okay, hold on 1 second. I'm gonna close a few tabs. Okay. Share screen. Which one is it? This one? Um, okay. So this is an image from a personal series that I'm working on right now. There are some words with it, but let me see. So let me go actually to my site really quick. Okay. So can you see what I'm seeing right now?
Yeah, get the zoomed in
Yeah.
shot of the images. Yeah.
Okay. Is it too zoomed in?
No, no, no. We where it was before was fine too. Yeah.
Okay, cool.
Yeah.
I just wanted to give everyone kind of like a chance to read the kind of verbiage on the left, just to kind of ground you in the images before. Can you read them, or are they too small?
Oh, they're good size.
Okay. I'll give you like a minute and a half and kind of go from there. Okay. So I'm working on a personal series that is addressing, some trauma that I've had in my life, and I'm trying to find an outlet for it, with art. I think, some of my favorite photographers, they have a way of taking, um, like the art that I appreciate the most is art that makes me feel. So I want to have that effect also. Like I want to both feel that when I see my own work, and I also want other people to have that experience also. There's just something about going to a museum for me, and seeing like just beautiful things, and just, allowing yourself to be emotional and be moved. There's something just incredible about that to me. This is, to be honest, this is the first time I think I've really put myself in my work, and didn't really consider whether or not it would be accepted or not. So like I said, like this is a journey. It's not, art and photography. I'm still figuring it out. Like I think sometimes people, especially me, like I'll look at other people, I'm like, oh man, they've got it. Like they're already there. Where else is there to go? But you don't know where they're at with their career either. So I just want to let you guys know that, or let you all know that it is a journey. It's not linear, and but the process can be a lot of fun. You learn a lot about yourself in the process. So definitely soak it up and enjoy it. Um, and also, like, when you hit your milestones, um, they they're exciting. It is exciting to see the milestones, but the thing is that you spend so much time in the process that if you're only enjoying the very end result, you're only happy for like 30 seconds, and then you're off to the next thing. So I definitely recommend finding your way of enjoying the process. But back to film, because I love it. Okay, so um I wanted something that kind of like felt like summer. So like I'll actually show you the whole series actually, instead of just going through the three images that I have up, just because I think they're fun. But I wanted something that kind of spoke to my relationship with some of my best buddies. When I first moved to my neighborhood, originally from Detroit, and I moved to West Bloomfield. I didn't have any friends, and there was like this group of guys that just instantly welcomed me into the group. And I was a very shy, like kind of stiff kid, and they were just um, very kind, very cool, and like we've been friends ever since. So I wanted something that kind of spoke to there's always ups and downs in relationships, but for the most part, there was like this unwavering consistency that I experienced with this group of men. And they just had a way of showing up, and I wanted something that felt like our summer days. There's something about like just summer days that just really, you're off school, you're kicking it with your friends, and it's just, yeah, that's all I wanted. I just wanted the feeling of the love that I felt with this group of guys. So I actually think I'm gonna go to the site part. So I love this one. It just makes me feel like um it was the first time that I really like cut loose. Like I said, I came from a very religious household. I was kind of straight and narrow, and I felt like with these group of men, like I could really, well, we were all boys at the time, but I felt like I could really like cut loose. Um, so these two images, actually, all three of them, kind of like reflect that. The thing that I love about film is that you get some grain in here. It's not perfect. If I went through and showed you kind of like the frames one by one, like film is chemicals, and not every situation is going to be the same. There's a cloud shift, and then all of a sudden you're missing your focus, and or sorry, missing your exposure. And especially with these old camera bodies, this thing is a box, and it's a heavy little box. So it's hard to like really move, and there's no autofocus. But there's something about feeling the work in my hands that I've always enjoyed. I come from a blue collar family, so there's something about like feeling the work at the end of the day that I really enjoy. Um, and I come from kind of like two sets of households. Like I have my I was originally I went to like Jewish day school and stuff like that, and then like the other half of my family is Catholic, or sorry, Baptist, and so a few of them are Catholic. So yeah, I just kind of wanted something that talked about that duality. Um, Pants sagging, that's kind of obvious. I grew up in the 2000s, so that was pretty much it. Um, and then these just still feel just like summer to me. I just wanted moments, just things that just felt really authentic. And there's something about putting your subjects in a situation where their reactions are going to be real. I My first priority with this project was for someone to look at the images and say like, it looks like they're having fun, instead of just like, oh, this is just technically sound. So I really wanted to like have some feeling there. um I did not grow up on a lake or anything, but there's something about just like eating with your friends, like whether it's on the back of a car or on top of a car, on a rooftop, or on the floor, or wherever in someone's basement, it doesn't matter, but there's something about just like kicking it and eating food with your friends. There's nothing like it. It's a very enjoyable experience. I love it. I love sharing a meal with people. It just to this day, like when I grew up, I would eat off the same plate of some of my family members, and so I wanted something about food specifically. Um, this one is pretty much I just thought it was a nice little moment. They were washing up in the lake, and there was I just loved the highlights. Sometimes things just catch your eye and you just take a snap. And that was one of those moments. My Because I grew up in a religious household, there's certain numbers like three or water. There's certain themes that come up a lot in Christianity and Judaism. And so I was pretty meticulous with that. And my mom always loved like the idea of like um, washing someone's feet and like the humility of it. So I plan to do a few more. I plan to do a project actually with water. I haven't quite cranked it out in terms of the full concept, but it's something that I really want to do. Um, yeah, this one like so I'm a big Brene Brown fan, and there's she has this phrase called can you sit in the dark with me? Like you don't necessarily have to like experience what someone else is experiencing, but can you like be empathetic and be around them when they're going through it? And so for me, this one was particularly important because my friends were around when my mother passed away, and that was a particularly challenging experience for me. And so, but they really showed up, so I wanted to kind of like pay homage to them. This one's just like pretty straightforward. I just wanted like a group of guys kicking it, shooting the shit type of thing. So, um, yeah, so that's the Brotherhood series. There's a few more images that I wanted to show. Um, so skin tones with film can be kind of tricky. Um, when you are shooting film, you kind of have to expose for what you want. So, you know, I definitely recommend using a light meter if you are exposing for the shadows, and it's kind of like it's tricky sometimes. So you have to really think about like what's the most important thing that you want, because when you are metering, typically people will tell you like meter for the highlights, meter for the shadows, meter for midtones, and then kind of do an average of three. But depending on what you want the image to look like, you might have a priority for like midtones and highlights. So you have to like kind of skew that average up a little bit. So for me, this Lino is a pretty dark guy. So if I hop over, I've shot with him more than once. And if I show you really quick, um, so like this is closer to his, oh, this is closer to his complexion. So he's a pretty dark fellow, and so this is also in film, but it's in studio. I had a titch more control, but that's I just kind of wanted to show you that um, the difference between here and here. So like there's quite a difference in saturation in terms of like dark tones, and that was deliberate because I kind of I saw this image a while ago in National Geographic, and there was kind of like this silverness to the highlights, and I just really wanted to try and grab that. So I focused more on the highlights and the midtones, and then I would just kind of crunch down afterwards. And crunching, I mean, using my curves to lower the rest. But yeah, you kind of have to be thoughtful, especially with film, what you want to do and what you want your image to look like. The more you plan, the more you can leave the rest. Like the more you plan, the more you can kind of have freedom, if that makes sense. If you plan your stuff into the ground, basically, you can have more flexibility to like kind of play because all the hard parts kind of done, and it kind of frees you up. Um, these two images I really enjoyed too. This one, don't tell anybody, was a happy mistake. But I meant to expose properly. I actually meant it to look more like this. But I was shooting in a studio with daylight, and my lights actually didn't go off, and so it was just a frame that I had, and so I was like, oh wow, like this is actually really cool. There's something with the hair, and so I actually am planning an entire editorial with this concept now because having mistakes, hey, it's still my stuff, right? So this was the image that Dana was speaking about, and this is the Harper's Bazaar editorial. I really loved it. This model is particularly talented. She just cut up that day, and it was a great team. Again, I can't stress anymore how much to have good people around you that you can share your art and vision to. This is just a particular favorite because I just wanted to show that even though things are film, you can still push colors pretty hard, as long as you're exposing correctly. It's still a great medium to work with. Not everything has to be like super faded, but if you like that, you can do it. And this is also in film. I really like it just because of the highlights. I kind of wanted to go for like a religious kind of like Jesus halo situation. And yeah, that's pretty much it for those. We've gone through a lot of advice in between. Yeah.
Nice.
um
Yeah, I mean, we are close to the end of the time. I don't want to keep you for too long. And so we could open it up to questions or yeah. But this has been awesome to hear just like sort of the behind the scenes on all these things.
Yeah, for sure. Let's get some questions going.
Yeah, I got some. Unless you want to go first, Gabriella. Okay, yeah. I was gonna say like first that advice was like really priceless. Like you said, like I really liked hearing all that stuff. There's like a lot of things like I don't know. I've been thinking about like that idea of like sending someone your images and just kind of like seeing how it goes. I just thought that was like I don't know. I was like I was just gonna get buried in their inbox, but I'm glad to hear that's something that's like your whole career, what you made it out of. That's what's up. Um, but yeah,
Yeah.
I was like wondering with like a good like cheap film camera, would be like to like start off would be if you thought or like
Um, I think I'll have to do a little research. But I think
yeah.
there's a few. I know Nikon has like an F1 that's pretty good. Minolta has one. I actually have it in here. I think I got it for like $100. Let me grab it.
Okay, yeah, that's for sure in the price range. Yeah, because I know that they could get up there.
Yeah, this one's like $100. I got it off of eBay. It's the X370. It's Minolta. Honestly, if it's a 35 millimeter camera and it has the ability to manipulate your basic settings, aperture, shutter speed, that's all you need. You don't need
Okay,
you don't need crazy gear. You just need to
okay,
get what you can afford. Don't put yourself out. And then you work with what you have, and then eventually you'll reach a point where what you have can't do what you want, and then you upgrade. But don't
okay.
but don't like break the bank trying to keep up with gear. I think
Mhm.
gearheads are cool. I think gear is awesome, but
Yeah,
I think people can get wrapped up in settings. I can do half the stuff with this camera as I could with the other one. It's
yeah,
because film is more about the film in terms of
yeah.
composing.
More that you take the shot, like that it exists, in the first place. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, thank you. I also want to say that I love that Brotherhood series. That was really cool. I really I connected with that.
That's awesome. Hell yeah.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah.
Yeah.
Um, So I just wanted to say a little bit about what Danny was saying. Danny, I heard from like several other photographers that it really doesn't matter about the camera as long as just like every camera can produce like a same quality image. It's just like what you want to do with it.
Hmm.
Um, but for you, I really related to when you said you first started off as like science
Hmm.
major. You wanted to go into something that career because that's what I'm doing right now. And
Awesome.
it's funny because I'm a little bit in a hiccup with it right now. I'm very drawn between art and science because it feels like they're such polar opposites. But it was really inspiring to hear that you just took this and it worked out so well for you. And you kind of just went with your feeling, your gut, and you trusted that in a way.
Yeah. I think I'm sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I
No.
wanted to kind of like touch on something that you said. For context, the way I went about it, I went to undergrad. I ended up getting a lab job, and then while I had my lab job, I was applying to medical school, right? And then so I went through the process, and then I ended up um, deferring and saying no. And during that whole time, I was also shooting. And then
Mm.
eventually, I ended up still having my lab job. And then basically on my off time, I was shooting. So I didn't necessarily like start couch surfing. I was still, like, hey, like I need to have a job. And then and then once, I start making enough money to like support myself, then I, took the leap. So that was my route. I think a lot of people do different ways. I didn't want to necessarily be out, put out because of it. So I had a job, and then it's a hustle, and it's a lot of work, but um you can do it, I believe.
Yeah,
Mhm.
yeah. It seems like a very competitive area to be into. But it's just also just like knowing that other people can choose like both at the same time is really nice. Because I've always heard that like yeah, it's one or the other type of situation, but it doesn't have to be. Um, my other question for you, I wanted to know is what was like one of your favorite shoots, if that's just like your own work, your own time, or if it was for a company, a certain model per se?
I'd say my favorite shoot right now is probably the Brotherhood series. And not, there's other images that I have that I think are technically like cooler or like more advanced on the lighting end and stuff like that, but for me it was the Brotherhood series because it was the first shoot that I did that I felt like I poured myself into. There's It's very fulfilling to actually like be vulnerable. Okay, so I'll answer real quick. um when I had my Zoom call with Elizabetta, and I'll share the her handle with Dana so that you guys can check her out. Um, she kind of talked about like flow state and um, like when a musician is like almost seizing on stage because of how much they're focused on their work. And um, there's something about putting everything of you into something that is just incredibly fulfilling. And I think that the longer that you can do it, and sustain that, kind of over and over again, the more authentic your work will be. I wanted to quickly say, like, yes, it is very competitive, but you also have a unique perspective, and no one's going to have your perspective. So it is competitive, but no one's you. So you also have like a valuable currency there. So don't sell yourself short on that.
I wanted to jump in because like I often sort of give that similar advice to students, like, look, like you're you, no one else can like have your specific voice. But then even myself, when I work on stuff, like I also struggle with that, like, is this derivative or whatever. So I was going to ask you, like, because earlier you said like no one is you, you have unique perspective, and I was gonna be like, what's yours, Pele? But like maybe that's really difficult to like, put into concise words. But maybe more importantly is like, while you're working on something, what is that process of like checking in with yourself to be like, am I being authentic? Like, is it a really sort of like, do you say that in your head, or like what makes sure? Yeah.
How do I know, like basically how do you know you're on the right track? So
Yeah.
I'm gonna go back to the flow state thing. So I had a particular experience because I also struggled with that. And it wasn't until recently that I really understood it. But when I was talking to Elizaveta, she was saying like, hey, like, you have to like basically get into a flow state when you are doing your planning. And basically from now, I'm going to separate the art stuff from the business side. Okay. Business, it's like you have to basically get your technical skills up. You still have your perspective, but you're also like kind of a gun for hire in ways. Like people are going to ask you for your perspective, but brands have a certain identity and you still have to kind of fall in line. So that's a different conversation. But in terms of your own art, I think well, I don't want to speak too loosely. If you've ever been vulnerable, which I think if you're a human, you've experienced at some point, you know how uncomfortable that can feel. For me, that has been the North Star. So anytime I'm planning and it just feels like I'm going through the motions, I know that I'm just going through the motions. If I'm uncomfortable and I feel like if I'm sharing, um, when I'm uncomfortable and I'm vulnerable, I know what that feels like. And that's the space that I have to live in when I'm doing my planning. So when I'm doing art specifically, if I'm adding in elements of myself, that's uncomfortable for me. Because you're reliving some of these experiences. And so or it's just like elements of yourself that you don't want to share. But that's where the good stuff is, unfortunately, or fortunately, whichever way you want to look at
Nice.
it. But I would
Yeah.
say from an art perspective, if you feel like it doesn't all have to be like trauma related. It's just that's what I'm working on right now. But if you feel like you're uncomfortable or antsy, that's kind of like your tell that you are entering information into whatever you're writing down that is sensitive. And it's something that you might want to have a conversation with yourself a bit more, like, hey, like, why am I so sensitive about this that I'm putting down? But honestly, you just got to try a whole bunch of stuff. You got to try a whole bunch of stuff, and then you'll start having these moments where you're really enjoying it or you're very uncomfortable, and then you have to explore that some more. And not everyone's going to have the same process, and to be honest, I'm still figuring it out. But of what I've experienced so far, this has been my way.
Yeah. We are out of time. Danny, Gabby, any last minute questions?
Oh no, it was just reminding me, it's like everything, I guess everything you want is on the other side of discomfort kind of thing. I forgot who said that, but yeah, I guess it reminded me of that. Like just kind of go for it. But no, yeah, I really like that flow state when planning you were talking about too. But oh yeah,
Yeah.
last thing I had to say was good luck in March. I really hope you do well in March.
Awesome. Thank you.
Yeah.
I never thought about being able to like get into the flow state during like pre-production stage. Like I always sort of felt like that only happened during production, like
Yeah,
you're physically
exactly.
moving around. So
So did I, until it happened, and then I was like, "Oh, okay, I get it."
geez Louise, it's
Yeah.
awesome.
Yeah. Really, really, really good.
Cool.
Um cool. Yeah, that's thank you so much. This has been incredible. Like it's been so cool, like I said, to hear like behind the scenes, but like especially your process. Like it seems it's really demystified it. It's like, oh wow, like really just like started by shooting your friends? Like that's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for having me. Y'all are awesome, and whoever's on the recording end, y'all are awesome too. And
Yeah,
good
thank
luck
you.
out
Thank you.
there.
And so redundant not to have a camera and a photo cloud or, whatever. But yeah, thank you.
Cool.
Yeah, and then Pele, if you could send me Elizavetta's handle, that'd be amazing.
Yeah, I'll send it to you.
Cool.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Cool. Well, Danny, Gabby, thank you so much. Pele, again, thank you so much. When this recording is all crunched up and ready to go, I'll send it to you as well, so you have it for your records.
Sweet. Awesome. All
Cool.
right, y'all. Take care.
Thanks again.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thanks again.
Bye.
Have a good
Uh-huh.
one.
See
Yeah.
you.
Thank you.
Bye.